It was a cold autumn day on the island of Sodor. A thick blanket of mist covered the landscape, obscuring everything in its wake as far as the eye could see. The leaves were falling and the air was crisp with the promise of winter. The narrow-gauge engines had been working exceptionally hard to clear trees and debris from the railway track. One morning, Rusty, the little orange diesel engine, stopped next to Skarloey. He was taking on water from a leaky valve. Skarloey, being the kind-hearted engine he was perceptive to his friend's emotions. He knew that something was bothering them.
Hello, Rusty. You do look glum. Is everything okay?
Rusty's eyes narrowed as the memory of Duncan's actions towards Peter Sam flashed through their mind.
It's just Duncan. He keeps on having a go at Peter Sam because he lost his trucks on the old iron bridge. It's not even any of his business.
Oh, yes, I heard about that, and...
Skarloey? Hello?
Oh, yeah, it just reminded me of something from back in the day. I think maybe we could use it to teach Duncan a lesson.
Go on, I'm listening.
Skarloey took a deep breath and began to tell the story of the old iron bridge to Rusty.
It starts off when me and Rheneas were the only engines working on the line.
And this is the story that Skarloey told. When he was in an inoperative condition, Rheneas, his brother, was the only engine working on the line. However, this was not always the case. The Blue Mountain Quarry had purchased a locomotive specifically designed to shunt wagons around the yard. This engine kept to himself, but would always whistle to Rheneas when they saw each other, and it never complained, even when the work was tough. Despite its reserved nature and quiet disposition, the engine had a sense of humor that sometimes peeked out in its whistle, and Rheneas was often the recipient of these playful sounds. There was a mutual respect between the two engines, and they knew that they could always count on each other to get the job done, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Unfortunately, the engine was subject to an unbearable amount of bad luck throughout his career. It would regularly derail, often at the most inopportune times, causing significant delays and frustration. In addition, the engine's whistle would sometimes jam open, letting off a loud, ear-piercing screech, which caused panic among the workers in the quarry. Despite these challenges, the engine continued to plod along, doing its duty with unwavering determination and courage. One morning, as the crew of the engine were getting ready for the day's tasks, a mysterious man in a coat appeared. He held a railway lamp in his right hand, with the word "Produce" engraved on the bottom. Without a word, the man set the lamp down on the engine's footplate and walked away into the mist. The crew was unsure what to make of the lamp or the man who had brought it. They knew that lamps were used to guide engines through the fog when visibility was poor, but they had never seen one like this before. The lamp seemed to glow more brightly than any other and was clearly of high quality. As the engine set off on its tasks, the crew couldn't help but wonder who the man was and why he had given them such a valuable gift. They were grateful for the lamp, but they couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. As the days went by, the crew couldn't help but notice an incredible change in the engine's luck. The frequent derails, the whistle jams, everything seemed to disappear, and the engine ran better than ever before. The crew was amazed by this change and couldn't help but wonder what was causing it. They knew that they had done nothing to change the engine or improve its performance, so the only explanation they could think of was the mysterious lamp that the strange man had given them. Years passed, and the engine continued to defy expectations, tackling every challenge with ease and grace. The engine's newfound confidence turned into cockiness, and he soon forgot about the importance of his crew's safety. The engine began to feel invincible, and he began to take unnecessary risks that would put his crew in danger. He would take them on dangerous routes or push them to their limits, all in the name of setting new records. The crew was getting tired of the engine's antics. They tried to reason with the engine.
If you keep up with your shenanigans, you're gonna get us all killed one day, mark my words.
But he wouldn't listen. He was so caught up in his own pride and arrogance that he had forgotten about the stakes. One misty October night, the quarry manager received a distressing message from a messenger who had traveled down the line to the engine's yard.
I'm afraid that Rheneas has broken down. You will take his truck to Croven's Gate and then return back here in the morning.
The engine and its crew set off on their journey, with the produce lamp lighting up the way. As they traveled through the night, the lamp's light illuminated the dark track and kept them safe. As the engine and its crew continued down the track, the old iron bridge came into view. The engine slowed down as it approached the narrow, dilapidated bridge that hung 300 feet above the swampy marsh below. The mist was so thick that the crew couldn't see the marsh, but they could hear its muffled roar. The engine's lamp was shining bright, illuminating the track and the bridge as they approached. They continued on, but as they crossed the bridge, the crew felt a sense of unease. It was a chilling reminder that, despite the engine's newfound luck and power, they were still just machines operating in a world filled with unexpected dangers. As the train slowly rolled along the rails above the iron girders, a sound that could only be described as the iron girders creaking and groaning could be heard. The metal was protesting against the weight of the train, which seemed to be too much for it to bear. It was like the iron girders were crying out in pain, begging the train to lighten its load. But as they approached the middle point of the iron bridge, something unexpected happened.
Oh my gosh, what was that?
One of the wagons had knocked one of the rail joiners out of place. They breathed a collective sigh of relief when they discovered that the damage was behind the last wagon.
Ooh, that was close.
With the slate delivered to Croven's gate, they felt a sense of accomplishment and relief. The engine was determined to make it back to the quarry, insisting that they could make it over the damaged track on the iron bridge. Its crew were skeptical, but foolishly agreed to the engine's suggestion. Little did they know that this would be the biggest mistake of their lives. The engine and its crew approached the old iron bridge, knowing that they had to make it across. They had come too far to turn back now, too far to give up. The bridge creaked and groaned, making the crew uneasy. The driver eased down the throttle, careful not to put too much strain on the bridge. The engine began to grow impatient, wanting to make it across as quickly as possible. Suddenly, it shot forward, ignoring the warnings of the crew and the condition of the bridge. The bridge shook, creaked, and groaned, threatening to collapse at any moment. As the engine ran over the snag in the rails, it suddenly lurched, the sudden jolt knocking the lamp off the top of its smoke box. As if on cue, the whistle jammed wide open, sending a shrill, ear-piercing sound through the bridge. The crew covered their ears, trying to block out the noise, but it was no use. The whistle continued to howl, even as the locomotive's wheels left the rails. The engine suddenly tipped over, and it and the crew both plunged off the bridge. They tried to grab onto anything they could, but there was nothing to hold onto. They watched in horror as the engine's whistle drowned out the sound of their screams, echoing everywhere, before disappearing into nothing as they plunged into the swamps below.
Bust my buffers, Skarloey. That was terrifying.
But there's more. Many workmen will tell you that when the moon is full, they can see the little engine trying to get home, but he never reaches the other side. Subscribe!